Hey, here we go. Oh. Yeah, so it looks like, my bad, being late to some shit that I set up. But I just wanted to say that electoralism is the poison of the masses. The Democrats, I guess, and they voted to not have the government shut down, and they capitulated to the Republicans and what they wanted, and people are up in arms about Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries and them choosing to, again, capitulate to what the Republicans want. But I would really beg all of you people, anybody listening to this, anybody who comes across this ever, to stop thinking that these parties operate separately. They don't. It's a uni-party. They don't give a shit about you. The thing you need to understand is the way that politics is set up is that they were never meant to represent anybody that was non-white or not accepted by whiteness. Because whiteness in and of itself is a class. It is a class that is effectively presented through fake ass science where like you have races and whatnot. But when you look at the class of whiteness, it is tied to decadence, like just like affluence, domination, and just a bunch of bullshit. Like it's not a system. It's not a race. It's not a quote unquote people. It is a class of people. So this issue that we are running into with politicians is the issue of believing that they are representatives of the people. Even people you could come across who aren't quote unquote white or represent whiteness or accepted by it, but if they are politicians, they are proselytizing and promoting the bullshit. And again, from a class standpoint, they are promoting the same shit that somebody who you would deem aesthetically or phenotypically white. But again, that science is not a thing. There is no race. If we can have the discussion and we have the understanding that race doesn't exist within humans, right? We have that understanding. Then arguing anything to defend yourself against it is only propping it up more, rather than if you look at it from a class standpoint and you realize like, oh, race plays into class. Like it is a part of why shit is the way it is. It's not separate from it. But people lose the nuance when they try to act as though one doesn't exist or one is more dominant than the other, but they both are playing into the same bullshit. So, hey, Jane, talking about people freaking out about the debt ceiling and them not wanting to shut down the government, and and how race is a class issue. It's just a convoluted, weird fucking thing of a class issue. Is what I'm talking about, Jane. Again, so when you look at somebody like Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries and you see them now have locks underneath, they're just wet. Well, they're not even wet. I had brushed them out and patted them down. And yes, electoralism. But yeah, back to the conversation, back to the matters at hand. When you're talking about race and you're talking about where we are right now as a people, and you're talking about class, and you're looking at it from a standpoint of electoralism being the poison of the masses, you understand that it is a power dynamic that we are facing right now of people with a lot against people with a little bit. So that power dynamic of people with a lot against people with a little bit leaves the people with a little bit thinking that they have to do certain things within said system to be able to function. So it comes to like electoralism, when it comes to you thinking, if I vote these people in who want to be representatives of said system, if I vote these people in, they will do something for me and for my people and for my community. You get lost in the idea that, again, politics have absolutely nothing to do with what we think it does. We argue politics. Politicians are just getting money. And politics in and of itself is a representation of whiteness. And whiteness in and of itself is a representation of class. So when you look at the class of what whiteness is, it's that George Washington and them didn't foresee us. Like the founding slave masters, the founding fathers didn't foresee us. It was never about anybody that wasn't representatives of whiteness. And even then, when it comes to whiteness with that, George Washington were like aristocrats. Like they were getting money. So if you look at the power dynamic, if you look at the dynamic of whiteness before it was so before it became so polarizing, exactly, Amber, before it became so polarizing with modern day, English people, like Protestants that came over from Britain or whatever, they didn't fuck with Italian people. They didn't fuck with Irish people. And what was the reason why? Because of their religious beliefs. They were Protestants. They didn't fuck with the Christians. They didn't fuck with the Irish Catholics. They didn't fuck with the Catholics that were Italian, and they didn't fuck with the Irish Catholics. They used to kill Irish Catholics. They used to kill Italians. But at that time, they didn't consider them to be white. They had to be indoctrinated and accepted into whiteness. Because again, it is a class. So if you look back at the history, that's why history is not doomed to repeat itself. The only reason why we are repeating a lot of these things is because the people that are in power leave us to do that. But I'll get to that in a second. But when you look at, sure, shout out to you for being here, Javon. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Appreciate it. If you're new here, comment. If you're new here, subscribe. I appreciate a subscriber. Or hit up the Cash App or Venmo. But nevertheless, if you look at how they treated the Irish, how they treated the Italians, they had to be accepted into quote-unquote whiteness. Because, again, it is not a race, because race doesn't exist in humans. So a great quote I heard was, don't argue. If the thing that you disdain the most is what you promote. So when it's coming to things of, you said it right, continue with your bullshit. I whatever, bitch. The thing that you disdain the most, you tend to promote. When it comes to the way in which we deal with a lot of these things today, we tend to just argue them in circles, and it becomes an Ouroboros, and it becomes that Ouroboros because people would rather just keep arguing about the same shit over and over and over and over and over again, rather than go for a solution or look for something else, like something else to do with themselves. They'd rather be like, oh yeah, is this? I want to do this, or I want to do that. I want to change this, I want to change that. And I think I'm going to do that by voting for this person. When in reality, what is that person going to do for you? Like, what are you going to be left with? Hold on. My bad. What the fuck? Oh. Okay. But yeah. What are you left with? You're left with these same material conditions and results, because there's a lot of people who would say, like, yeah, I voted for Clinton, or I voted for Bush, or I voted for Obama, or I voted for Trump, or whatever, and they're still living the same exact way they were living decades ago. Like, they're still living the same exact way they were living the year before. Like, it's not really a changing of anything. Like, it's not really a changing of anything because you weren't in the plans in the first place. You're simply here for your ability to work in whatever shape, form, or fashion they need you to work in. So you thinking that you voting in someone to change your material conditions is disingenuous to you. Like, that's just not how shit is set up. So you look at people like AOC or Jasmine Crockett or Marjorie Taylor Greene or fucking Nancy Reagan. You look at those people, they are simply talking to your ideals. They aren't really doing anything about your actual material conditions. Like, maybe they'll move, like maybe they'll take their foot off your neck a little bit, but it's not really changing anything that won't need to be changed or need to be bettered after their term is over. Like, nobody wants you to be in a better position more than you do. So realizing that electoralism is the poison of the masses can help you realize that you need to find something else to do. We got to find something else to work with. Like, you can't keep playing the same fucking game, because it's just going to be a fucking game, which is what you're left with. You're left with arguing like, oh yeah, Trump is in office, it's 4 years of this bullshit. But when we get this other person in, it'll be different. Like, all this administration is doing is piggybacking off of what the other one did. Are they removing certain shit? Yeah, but that's what they always do. All these people are doing the same old shit over and over and over again. For instance, J.D. Vance, that piece of shit from Ohio, he's somebody who operates in whiteness. His wife is an Indian woman. He was caught out there showing feet in the racist chats. He was caught out there defending someone who was disparaging Indian people and Indian people and people with HB1 visas and all types of shit. And he was just like, yeah, nah, it's cool. And people were like, oh man, how could you do that to your wife? It's like, she operates in whiteness too, I'm sure. I'm sure she doesn't give a fuck. Because of class. She don't care, she good. He not talking to her. He talking to somebody that works at Nationwide or whatever. He's not talking to his wife. And even if he is, so again, believing in these politicians are doing you no good. Electoralism is the poison of the masses. Electoralism only works for whiteness. Whiteness is a class that was created to scientifically justify bigotry. Because race doesn't exist in humans. So even arguing these things are just promoting these things more. Just let these things go. And allow yourself to see that you're wasting your time chasing after said politician for whatever reasons. They aren't here to save you. Obama don't give a fuck about you. Biden, Trump, Kamala. Tim Walz, JD Vance. None of them care. They just getting money. They have a job. They're getting paid to do what they do. You don't pay them as much as you feel like you do. Like, so that class divide, that us versus them, it's really us versus them. But the reason why them keeps doing what they're doing to us is because us haven't realized that the material conditions that we are facing are because of them, and we haven't decided to finally just say fuck it. To just go back, to just completely divest from the system, deconstruct it all, and do our own thing. We keep trying to put a Band-Aid on the Titanic. It's not doing anybody any good. So, for your own mental health, like, just stop. Like, find another way. Because clearly this shit don't work. Because it's like we're all on a playing field, but we're not realizing who's in the owner's box. Like, yeah, we can keep playing this game. You can keep trying to operate adversarially against, like, Democrats versus Republicans, blah, 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 conservatives versus liberals. Conservatism and liberalism are the same thing. Liberals are just conservatives with thrifted clothes on. They're the same fucking people. Neoliberalism sucks. That's a whole different thing, but that's awful. But liberalism is just conservatism with thrifted clothes. It's the same shit. They both suck horribly. So, again, that field that we're on, the field of liberalism, the field of electoralism, the field of these material conditions, we're not trying to get at the owner's box. We're not trying to deal with the fuckers in the owner's box. You just keep going back and forth with each other, which is what they want, which is how this shit works. It works in that regard. It works for you to constantly argue with your friend about politics or your neighbor or just some random person about, oh, you voted for Trump or you voted for this person? Like, the fuck, that doesn't matter. In that's the point. You guys are supposed to argue about it. The politicians don't give a shit about what you're talking about. All of the adoration and fucking cum guzzling people do for these people that could give a shit about them is disturbing. Like, lionizing these folk is very disturbing. You have to give yourself a chance, like, by not doing that. And yeah, it's gonna seem off. Well, it's not gonna seem off. You're gonna seem like the odd one out when somebody asks you, like, oh, who you voting for? What are you doing this or this is on the third? And you like, I'm not dealing with that. I'm trying to do something different. People are gonna probably look at you differently, but I guess that's the point. Because what is the definition of insanity? They say insanity is like this, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It's clearly what we've been doing. And when you think about the greater Western understanding of this, of what's going on, people in the U.S. act like when shit is happening here, the whole world is in it. North America is only 4.2% of the human population. Get the fuck over yourself. Like, knowing that North America is only 4.2% of the human population, and then knowing that the U.S. government's military budget is so big that it's innumerable, and that out of the, 196 countries in the world, the U.S. has bases in, I think, 172 of them. Knowing those things and then being like, I gotta vote for Kamala and not Trump, although she's backing a genocide, is wild, because the rest of the world is affected by the military here. Like, the military industrial complex, which is a global thing, which is a lot of the greater West, which is North America, the shit you do in South America, then working with Europe as far as France, Britain, and shit like that. So when you're voting and you're using electoralism, you're only using it with you in mind. You aren't doing it even from an internationalist framework, like internationalism. You're not tying it all in together. But if you were to, then you would further realize they really don't give a fuck about you. If you were to tie in like, okay, we're 4.2% of the human population. But the U.S. government, as far as the military goes, is involved in majority of the countries in the world and has influence through imperialism and damn near everywhere. People are dying every day because of the decisions that the military here makes. And you either know this or you don't know this. And if you do know this and you still think about you personally, then they got you. They got what they wanted. They want you to be isolated. They want you to be individualists. They want you to be about you because that's the American way, right? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. They want you to, back the blue, black, whatever, like, again, vote for the right guy because that guy or girl leads into your ideological beliefs and you want to see them, be the representation of your ideology. When in actuality, they don't give a shit about you because they don't give a shit about the rest of the world. Like, again, electoralism is the poison of the masses. It will create a liberal out of you. It will make you an isolationist. It will make you lean into individualism to the point that you think that your vote is going to make you and only you material conditions better. But you don't really give a fuck about nobody else. And then when you don't get your way through the vote, you get a permit to protest, or you protest or whatever. You make a hoorah for a couple years, maybe a couple months. Then you do get what you want, or maybe get some kind of concessions, and then you quit again. Because it's an Ouroboros, it's a sick cycle. So the Jasmine Crockett's of the world, the AOCs, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Kristen Stefanik's, whatever her name is, the top head boss, Nancy Reagan, they all are representations of like empire and your ideals, but they won't ever do what you need to be liberated. So just let it go. And with that, make sure you keep your do-rag cape rolled. All right, peace.